Thy will be done. Teaching the Talmidi Israelite faith through the words of the Our Father, by Shmuel ben Naftali. Please visit our website at www.talmidi.co.il. Continuing Chapter 2, the ancient community of the Way and the Talmidi Israelite view of the Second Temple period. Section 12. The role of the prophet in the Israelite tradition. In both mainstream Christianity and Islam, a prophet is someone who gives a new revelation from God. If you, as a reader, wish to understand the Prophet Yeshua's mission from a completely Jewish perspective and realize why Talmidis view him solely as a prophet of God, then you need to fully comprehend what a prophet means in the Israelite tradition. A prophet is called to deliver a message directly from God, word for word. A prophet believes that he or she has had a personal communication from God, either directly by hearing a voice or by receiving a vision. And whether one believes or doubts that such things can happen, this is the absolute quintessence of what an Israelite prophet is. The prophet becomes the mouthpiece of God. Rather than delivering a new revelation or a new message, Hebrew prophets instead reiterate the original message. That's a vitally important point to understand. Remember how Yeshua told his followers, "The old wine is good enough"? The old wine refers to the original message of the Israelite religion. God makes God's will known to individual men and women who receive it and are driven by the power of that message to impart it. They are filled, or rather intoxicated, by that message. The power of God's presence so fills their soul that it feels as if something inside them is bursting to get out, and the power driving it will not stop until the message is delivered. Unlike other religious teachers, a prophet does not choose his or her vocation. The man or woman in question is plucked from life by God, often against their will. The prophet Jonah is the prime example of this. A sage or a preacher can learn their art. A prophet cannot. There is no school you can go to in order to learn how to become a prophet. There are no books to read, no qualifications to be gained. Preachers, sages, and rabbis can learn how to become these things, but a prophet delivers a message just as a river delivers its flood of water. The prophet has not necessarily striven previously for oneness with God. They may not even formally have been a very religious person, and they may not necessarily have even been a learned person. The prophet Amos, for example, was a simple vine dresser, not a man of religion. However, God seizes their mind and soul, and they become so full and bursting with God's message that they are compelled to impart it, regardless of the consequences to themselves, and even though in some cases they might even disagree with it. The prophetic office is a difficult one to endure. The sage or preacher can amend their message to make it more palatable to their audience, so that their personal lives will be easier. A prophet cannot do this. They cannot escape or run away from their calling. A prophet has to deliver an often uncompromising, sometimes distasteful message that people would rather not hear. As a result, the prophet faces constant opposition and rejection. Yeshua was therefore not unique in this respect. The suffering he endured, and what he went through, even his death, was to be expected in his role as a Hebrew prophet. A prophet often has a lonely life as a result of his calling from God. The prophet Jeremiah laments, "I sat alone because your hand was upon me." A prophet's life is often one of anguish and fear. Such is the life that prophets face, that some cry out to God, "Why are you doing this to me?" Yeshua was not unique in having a lonely, single life. Jeremiah also never married, in accordance with God's actual command. No one in their right mind, therefore, would deliberately seek to become a prophet. In Yeshua's day, in addition to the corruption of the priests, the rich were ignoring their financial responsibility to the poor. Debt was mounted upon debt, and the sacred religious laws that were intended to relieve poverty were being ignored by the rich. The zealots also faced God's judgment because they were committing violence by falsely using God's authority. Eventually, they shed human blood in the temple, which was the ultimate desecration. All these injustices invited God to act decisively, for God's kingship to intervene. It was therefore the job of the prophet to warn people that if these wrongs continued unchallenged and unchecked, there would be terrible consequences. The only way to avoid those calamitous consequences would be for the guilty to repent and change their behavior and thinking. Please see the links to the next video and the previous videos in the description below. If you have a genuine interest in Talmidaism, you can join our discussion group by sending a blank email with "subscribe" in the title to Talmidi-subscribe@yahoogroups.com. If you have a general inquiry and want to know more about Talmidaism, please email thywillbedone.talmidi@gmail.com.